Today's story is about the nightmare at Bear Creek Cabin. Enjoy the story.
Sun dipped below the horizon. The sky blazed orange, then deep purple. Stars emerged, cold and distant. Inside Bear Creek Cabin, the fire crackled in the stone fireplace. Warmth spread through the small space, chasing away the evening chill. John had dreamed of this. Seclusion, peace, a chance to escape the city's constant noise and demands. He sipped his coffee, savoring the silence. But as the fire died down to embers, a sense of unease crept in. A sharp knock on the door jolted John awake. Heart pounding, he sat up in bed, listening. Silence. Then it came again. 3 distinct raps, echoing through the silent cabin. He fumbled for his flashlight, the beam shaking in his hand. Taking a deep breath, he threw open the door. A figure stood silhouetted against the moonlight, tall and gaunt. The stranger introduced himself as Silas, claiming to be a historian studying the area's folklore. As he spoke, John noticed strange markings on his hands, intricate patterns etched into his skin. Silas caught his gaze and quickly shoved his hands into his pockets. An unsettling feeling crept up John's spine. Silas spoke of the cabin not as a simple dwelling but as a place of ancient power. He mentioned rituals conducted within its walls, rituals meant to appease forgotten gods. John tried to laugh it off, but Silas's intense gaze held him captive. He couldn't shake the feeling that Silas knew more than he was letting on. He decided to change the subject, asking Silas about the history of the area. But every story Silas told seemed to circle back to the cabin, to dark deeds and ancient sacrifices. Silas stood, his sudden movement startling John. "It's time," he said, his voice echoing strangely in the small cabin. He moved to the fireplace, pushing aside the rug with his foot. Beneath lay a trap door, barely visible in the dim light. John watched in horror as Silas heaved it open, revealing a set of rickety wooden stairs leading down into darkness. "The chamber awaits," Silas said, gesturing for John to descend. John hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to run. But Silas's eyes held a strange power, a hypnotic pull that John couldn't resist. He found himself moving towards the open trapdoor, his legs feeling heavy and cold. The air in the chamber was thick and musty, smelling of decay and something ancient and unnameable. The chanting reached a fever pitch. Silas pulled a wickedly curved knife from his belt, the metal glinting in the torchlight. He raised it high above his head, his eyes blazing with an unholy light. John knew, with chilling certainty, that he was about to witness something truly horrific. Summoning a surge of adrenaline, John lunged for the stairs, scrambling up the rickety steps. He could hear Silas shouting behind him, his voice a mix of rage and surprise. John didn't look back, didn't stop running until he burst out of the cabin and into the night. He didn't stop running until he reached his car, parked a half-mile down the dirt road. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life and he sped away, not daring to look back at the cabin silhouetted against the moonlit sky. The rising sun found John hundreds of miles from Bear Creek, a place that had become synonymous with terror in his mind. His car sputtered to a stop, out of gas, leaving him stranded on a deserted highway with nothing but his thoughts for company. He sat there, on the side of the deserted highway, and finally allowed himself to breathe. He was alive. He had escaped the clutches of Bear Creek, but the memories were far from gone. He looked back towards the direction of Bear Creek, a shiver running down his spine as he recalled the sinister events that had unfolded there. He could still feel the weight of Silas's gaze, could still hear the echo of his chanting in his ears, a haunting melody that refused to leave his mind. The peace he had sought in the wilderness felt like a distant memory, replaced by a bone-deep fear that clung to him like a shroud. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind seemed to carry a threat. He knew he should report what he had seen, should tell someone about Silas and the horrors he had witnessed. The authorities needed to know, but the words seemed to stick in his throat. But who would believe him? The story was too fantastical, too drenched in the supernatural to be taken seriously. He could already see the doubt and disbelief on their faces. He had no proof, nothing but his own shattered nerves and the chilling memories that haunted his every waking moment. The images of Silas, the chanting, the eerie feeling of being watched, they were all too real to him, but intangible to anyone else. So he kept silent, carrying the burden of his experience alone. The weight of it pressed down on him, a constant reminder of the horrors he had escaped but could never truly leave behind. The haunting remains of Bear Creek would follow him, a shadow in the corners of his mind, forever.